All right, folks, we're going to go and get started. Welcome to the VA Metro Purple Line Public Info Session. My name is Erik Gutierrez. I'm the Acting Chief of Communications. Before we get started, if everyone can rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to have Marine veteran Ray Delgado.
Yeah, you got that right.
All right. You can salute or put your hand over your heart. Ready? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Ray. Okay, so tonight, we're going to be presenting information on the Purple Line and how it's going to affect the West LA campus. We have subject matter experts from both VA and Metro. Just some ground rules. If you have feedback or a question, please fill out one of the cards that we have in the back. Hand it to one of the staff in the back, and then we'll go ahead and group them together because I assume a lot of you are going to have the same questions. So that's how we're going to do the Q&A tonight. But without further ado, I'm going to have Ms. Meghan Flanz, our Executive Director of the Master Plan. Go ahead and start it off.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. As Erik said, my name is Meghan Flanz. I'm the Executive Director over the Master Plan to redevelop the campus into a vibrant home and neighborhood for veterans. And I am thrilled to be able to present with you, to you tonight, some information about LA Metro's plans for extending the Purple Line onto our campus. Our draft master plan to redevelop our campus does envision having a public transportation, mass transportation option available to the veterans who will be living on the campus, as well as those who live elsewhere in the community and need to come here for their care and service. It will also be wonderful to have a transportation option for employees here so that not everybody is needing to be in their cars to get to this campus. The benefits to veterans of having the Purple Line extended onto our campus are obvious, and they're multiple. So it will assist those veterans who may be living here, who may need to get out into the community for jobs and other activities. It would be great for them to have the opportunity to ride the Metro to jobs and to shopping and to other things in the community. Will also help to bring visitors to the residential units on the campus, and will increase opportunities for staff to get here easily, and also just increase opportunities for veterans throughout the community to come access the services that we will have on our campus. So again, I'm happy to be able to get some information to you from LA Metro about what they envision. And I think up next.
All right, go.
Thank you very much, Meghan. My name is Erik Geier. I am Metro's Community Relations Manager for the West Side, and first and foremost, I want to thank the VA and the veteran community for having us out here today to be able to walk through our project and some of the things that are going to be going on campus associated with it. I just want to kind of echo what Meghan was saying regarding the Purple Line and the impacts and the effects that it can have positively for the veteran community on campus. To give a little history of the project, as with all projects, when we're in the studying phase, we look at all sorts of things, and one of the things that was looked at was stopping the line at UCLA. Another option that was looked at was, let's just continue west and bypass the campus and have a stop at Bundy. And the overwhelming consensus among Metro staff and the Metro board and everybody studying the process was that it was Metro's moral obligation to have a stop here on campus and provide that access to public transportation and this very large infrastructure project for the greater, or for the veteran community. And as a result, some of the things that we're gonna see, if you look at the purple line, which is extending from downtown all the way here, there's gonna be within 25 minutes, a 25-minute ride, veterans on campus will have access to major job centers throughout Los Angeles City, as well as major cultural institutions, and ultimately connect to the larger system, which will be able to bring them anywhere within the corners of LA County, and conversely will allow for a swift ride for veterans in different parts of the county to get here to access their care. The Purple Line extension is being built in 3 sections. This was decided for funding purposes. Sections 1 and 2 are currently under construction. They are fully funded, and we've got shovels in the ground, and we're making great progress with both of those sections. Section 3 is a little further along, a little further behind, but it is still on schedule as of right now. We are looking at an opening date in 2026. So this is a rendering of what we're looking, what the VA campus station will ultimately look like. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna walk you through first we're gonna look at what the pieces will look like on and around campus. And then I'm gonna walk you through some of the construction footprint and some of the activities that will be going on at a high level. And I want to emphasize that we're not going away after this meeting. We're going to be here every step of the way. Later on, you'll hear from my colleague, Marlon Walker, and his team, Construction Relations, will be a part of your community moving forward so that there are no surprises. Folks will know what's going on campus, and you'll be able to give input as far as some of the things that you're going to see on the horizon. We'll be able to work with that. So this is a passenger pickup and drop off proposed design, and one of the things that was very important to us when we really started getting a little closer and closer to the construction aspect of this is when the project is finished, we do not want folks treating the campus as a giant kiss and ride. So we worked with some representatives from VA on this design to really limit the footprint of where our patrons coming for pickup and drop off are. So there will be access to campus so that you can access the station, but really we wanted to avoid any kind of circumstance where folks were trying to park in random places or drop off in random places and add to congestion on campus. Another aspect of station access is the bus rail interface. You'll see in the purple shaded areas up on Wilshire Boulevard, that's going to be bus loading and unloading zones. They currently are, I think that they're currently as such, but they're going to be modified and enhanced so that those connections from the bus to the rail can be made smoothly and easily. We are also looking at elevator and escalator on the north side to access that bus rail interface. And on the south side, you'll see right about here a pedestrian bridge going over the ramp so that we're minimizing the amount of traffic, foot traffic through campus from the bus connection. I do want to point out as we're working through some of this, there is a well-known mural along the underpass and the sides of the overpass on Wilshire and Bonsall. And part of that mural in this area right here would be affected by the vertical transportation that's planned for the for the area to access the bus connection. So we looked at possibly moving the mural across the street, and what was ultimately the plan that we are working with right now and that we're studying and looking closely at is replicating that mural in a mosaic that will stand up well to the elements and the sunshine in particular, and remain a part of the greater mural. We have reached out to some of the veteran organizations and gathered some feedback on that particular, and that process is ongoing and will continue. So this is this slide is really outlining what the station construction footprint is going to look like, and there are two main areas that we're looking at. Right here on the eastern side, and then the parking lot, there will be that's where the station box construction will take place. And over here on this side, on the western edge of campus, is a construction laydown area where tunneling operations will be staged from. So right now, I'm going to walk you through two very high-level pieces of construction. To build a subway, there's two, there's obviously tons of smaller activities that take place within these two major activities, but there's two major activities that take place. One is tunneling, where we build a tunnel boring machine launch shaft, and we dig about 90 feet to the ground, and then we lower equipment in to build the tunnel boring machines. And then the tunnel boring machines, there's two of them, move side by side, in this case from west to east. That is the first activity that's taking place. And so what we're looking at here is the staging area for that activity. We'll note right here, we're going to create a driveway so that trucks and equipment can access this piece of campus. And that's going to be shared with VA for their construction purposes, so that they can get quickly to this part of campus without necessarily going through Bonsall. As we move east for about 100 yards or so, there is just tunnels which will be underneath part of that grassy area before we reach the construction station box, the construction of the station box. Those are going to be 60 feet below the ground, and you won't feel anything. You can be sitting on top of that grassy area where the tunnel boring machines are going through, and you wouldn't feel them beneath you. And during operations, you also will not see or feel that that subway operation beneath you. So next, we're reaching the station staging area. There are two main pieces here on campus. The first piece over here, just west of Bonsall, is going to be a kind of smaller construction area, and then over here is the more major construction area where we will be digging the station box. And to give you an idea of how this occurs, we take 90-foot steel piles and drill them along the perimeter of the station box, and then we excavate down from there. And then once we get about 100 feet in depth, we then start building the station box back up from the bottom. Now, significantly, I think my colleague Marlon in a little bit will discuss what some of the construction staging area will look like and some of the mitigation measures to really limit the amount of noise and dust and those kinds of things during construction. But I think a lot of folks look at this and think immediately access to Bonsall. And that's something that we are going to maintain at all times. At all times, there will be a lane in each direction on Bonsall, and there will also be, the sidewalk will be open. So all access, pedestrian, vehicle, and emergency vehicles will be maintained at all times. A major concern that we've heard about was truck trips, and what kind of truck trips are we going to have associated with this construction. So we put together a couple of slides of what we're estimating for the truck trips associated with this construction. The first truck trip, the first stage being the major piece of this over here, the tunnel boring machine launch operation. That is set to start approximately next summer, and we're looking at about 50 trucks per day coming in and out of this area, and then for a short duration, about 13 trucks per day coming in and out of this area. Now, it's important to note, to kind of put this number in perspective, 50 trucks sounds like a lot. In the grand scheme of things, we see about 5,000 cars coming through both, combined going east and west on Wilshire during rush hour. So we're not adding significantly to the number of vehicles on the road at that point. And as it is, many of, if not all of these truck trips are going to be slated for the evening hours to really reduce the amount of impacts to traffic. We're really looking mostly at nighttime trips between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. is what we're projecting. Stage 2 of major truck trips is the tunneling. That first stage was for more of digging that launch shaft for the tunnel boring machines. Once the tunneling machines launch and start heading east, earth comes out of the ground as they're heading east. So this is where trucks will come in, and overnight, dirt will be loaded into the trucks, and they'll drive off quickly back onto the 405. This is busy with the number of arrows running through it, but as we really get to the excavation of the station box, what we're looking at is 30 to 70 trucks per day, depending on the amount of soil that's being brought out. One of the options that we are exploring is building a small ramp so that the trucks can just come out of here, straight back onto Wilshire without going back through Bonsall again. But then again, really quickly back onto the 405. You'll notice that this activity is taking place in the historic district. Some of the buildings have been recognized as historically protected, and there are other kind of contributing elements to that historic district. We are being very careful with them. One of the contributing elements is a grid of trees, and we are committed to making sure that that grid is recreated with either palm trees or different trees after our construction is completed. With that, I want to turn it over to my colleague Marlon Walker, who is going to take you through some of the activities on the more immediate horizon.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Eric mentioned, I am with Construction Relations. My name is Marlon Walker, and I'm the Assistant Manager of Construction Relations. And while Eric handles a lot of projects on the west side in community relations, I personally am dedicated solely to this project. So if you're wondering how we work together, Eric has a wider scope and a wider breadth of responsibilities. I'm dedicated specifically for this project. So as he mentioned earlier, you'll probably get to know me over the next few years if you're here very intimately, because I'll be out giving updates regularly, not just here at the VA hospital, UCLA. We do homeowners associations in Westwood as well, civic agencies, and community-based organizations. But what I want to talk to you now about is the work that's going on now that you'll see immediately over the next couple of years. This is an overall schedule that looks at the major activities as we get closer and closer to actual station construction. What's been happening now, and you may have seen if you live and work in the Westwood area, we've been on the streets in the area of Westwood Boulevard and Wilshire Boulevard, right where the Hammer and UCLA building are. What we have been doing and will be doing until 2020 is what's called pre-construction work. It's not actual construction, heavy construction. What pre-construction consists of is advanced utility work. In this next slide, even though it's kind of hard to see, it's a cross-section of a street where you can see subterranean, you can see what's down below. So what Metro and its contractors have been doing since April of this year and will continue to do until about April of 2020, springtime of 2020, is they're looking underground at the existing utilities that are there. Obviously, in any major urban center, you're going to have a lot of underground equipment. You've got power cables underlined, you've got water and sewer, you've got telecommunications, you've got cable companies, you've Spectrum, Charter, Time Warner. All of those are underground. And what we need to do before we can begin building station construction and some of the heavy excavation is to look underground, see where those utilities are now, move them out of the way in preparation for major construction. Now this does a couple of things. One, it helps to maintain service. So if you've got electrical service, rather than us just starting to build or dig underground without looking, we look and see that way the service is maintained and not interrupted. And then also, again, for worker safety to make sure that there are no power cables that we're going to encounter later on when we start heavy construction. Coming in January of next year, was related for fall of this year earlier, but it's pushed back. There's going to be some major advanced utility work and some restoration of power, if you will. We're working with Southern California Edison to do work to restore and build new power facilities here. So in January 29 is going to be 2019 of next year. We're going to do 1 year of work starting on Ohio, working our way westward to Federal, and then working our way north on Federal, back to Wilshire, back around to the VA property. The work hours are from 9 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. That's the Ohio and Federal. Work on Wilshire Boulevard itself will be 9 in the morning till 9 at night, until 6 in the morning. At all times, we'll maintain at least one lane of traffic on Wilshire and Ohio and Federal. Wherever possible, we've been able to maintain 2 lanes on Wilshire, but some work does require lane restrictions down to 1 lane for officer safety, for construction worker safety as well as pedestrian safety. Construction sound walls. Eric talked a little bit about the staging on the VA campus. What I wanted to do with the next couple of slides is kind of give you an idea. This is at Wilshire and La Brea. It's existing now. If you were to drive down Wilshire to La Brea, we have 2 staging yards. We have one on the north side of the street, northwest corner of La Brea and Wilshire, and then on the southwest corner. This is the southwest corner. You can see equipment is in the yard. These sound walls are 20 feet high. They protect the sound because you've got a condominium complex directly across the street. So what we have done in this yard is to try to maintain as much as possible the equipment that doesn't idle. And I'm going to go over in detail a lot of the noise mitigation, dust mitigation measures that Metro undertakes to make sure that the impacts on the local or immediate community is lessened. Again, this is at Wilshire and Western. There's another sound wall. It's about 20 feet high. Keeps all of our equipment out of sight. A lot of people are, depending on where we're building, are very concerned with blight. What they can see is heavy equipment next to their property. So we've done our best to maintain all of our equipment within these sound walls. This is kind of a funky little slide, but what it tries to do is show you what the line of sight would be. So if you see those arrows toward the sound wall, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're able to see depending on how high up in a building you are. So at a level 4, you can see quite a bit more, and the noise will probably be a little bit louder than if you were at a lower level, simply because you're not being protected. The noise is not being kept inside by the sound walls. Again, this is more of the same illustration. As you can see, as the levels get higher, you can see more of the construction or what the equipment is inside the yard. Okay, so for noise control, so what about the noise? You're gonna have all of this equipment, you're gonna have trucks in and out. Won't I be disturbed, or won't, the property here be affected by all the work that you're doing? Well, here are some of the measures that we, this is not by no means exhaustive, but this is some of the key measures that we take to reduce noise and to make sure that the impact is lessened on our neighbors. We use noise muffling enclosures on stationary equipment, tailgate slamming that you may have heard or seen on other construction yards. We don't do that, that's strictly prohibited. Engines, whether it's on equipment or on a vehicle, are not allowed to idle unless that equipment is actually in use. We have monitors that monitor all of these activities at all times, and if we're found to be in violation, we could be fined or work could be stopped until corrective action is taken. We have what's called independent compliance monitors on every site that we have that Metro works on, especially on the Purple Line as well. And these independent compliance monitors are not dedicated to Metro or the contractor. They're independent as their title implies. And so when they see a site or see a violation and they notify us, again, it's not us, it's an independent compliance monitor that has jurisdiction over issuing fines and levies. Construction for air quality. We are under the auspices of the California Air Resources Board, who also have jurisdiction over the South Coast Air Quality Management District. The bottom line here is that we are mandated to comply with stringent air regulations by both SC, AQMD, and CARB. We have, as I mentioned earlier, inspectors and monitors who continuously monitor the air quality level and make reports. Vibration monitor, we have monitors, we have physical monitors, electronic monitors that we place on certain buildings in certain locations to measure the vibration levels before our construction, during construction, and even after construction. As far as dust, yes, we're gonna have trucks and they're gonna be moving dirt, so how are we gonna try to make sure that dust doesn't end up escaping our immediate work zone? Well, some of the measures we take, you put tarp over the dirt as needed. All of our areas, when the trucks come out of those yards that I showed you where the sound walls are, all of the truck tires have to be cleaned before they're out on the street. We actually have physical sweepers who will sweep up behind them. We also, Metro as part of a green construction policy that sets, as I mentioned, those rigorous standards for emissions. We constantly do street watering and street sweeping. And as I mentioned, the wheels are washed for the trucks to make sure that the dirt isn't tracked out into the streets. Erik is going to talk very briefly about first mile, last mile. It's a pretty innovative transportation concept that Metro has come up with. It's coming, it's not here yet.
Thank you very much, Marlon. So Metro's board has directed the agency to look at first mile, last mile solutions, because we understand in a place like Los Angeles, where we're used to walking into our garage, getting in our car and driving to the place we're going and getting out, and walking straight from a parking lot. This is a little different when you're talking about a train. A train isn't always going to take you exactly to where you're going. Even for the folks that are going to be living on campus, there's going to be, the train will be on the South Park campus. So what we're going to be looking at in first mile, last mile are different ways to access the campus, and different things like walking paths and bike paths to ease access to get to the station, both from off campus and also throughout the campus. And that will provide a very good opportunity for us to work closely with VA, as VA is working on its master plan and coming up with their own connections to different parts of campus, where some of our priorities and those priorities may meet, and be able to work together to create bike paths and walking paths and other sorts of infrastructure, which will not only ease access for veterans trying to reach the station, but also as a greater component of the master plan. I now want to introduce another one of our colleagues, Dennis Tucker, who is here to discuss some of Metro's various services for veterans.
Thanks, Erik. So for those of us that don't know, our CEO is a veteran, and we are directed per our CEO with a 6% hiring goal for military and family members. And so, support and promote economic development for veterans. I just want to go over some of these few bullets here. We understand that employment is the biggest indicator. As a veteran myself, coming out the United States military and Army, after serving 22 years, it was really important that we transition to make and for that next chapter in our lives. And so, as a veteran, from coming directly from the CEO, I understand employment is the biggest indicator, the biggest roadblock, I should say. Resources, we need them, but employment, I feel deep down, if a veteran has a job, they can provide for his or her family. And so, support and attract talent and their spouses as well. The military spouse is part of that 6%. They're part of the veteran team, and we feel that they bring a strong attaboy to the veteran community as well as that support system and that resources. So we want to hire military spouses as well. Leverage skills and knowledge and attributes. We know veterans, whether you're in A school in the Air Force or you go to tech school or you go to basic training in the Army, they have a skill. They go off to get an MOS training and then years of service. So we want to leverage those skills via the Metro Veterans Program. Myself and my assistant, we can help tailor resumes so veterans can understand what that job description looks like, and so they can get through the hiring process. And so we have the Metro Veterans Hiring Program. Educate veterans community and the diverse opportunities we have. It's funny, most people only think Metro has bus drivers as an employment opportunity. And there are several other career opportunities. And so when I educate the men and women in the Reserve and National Guard unit, I sort of have to kind of hit this bullet point a lot and talk about some of the additional employment opportunities that we have at Metro, to include senior leadership positions, mid-level management positions, as well as that entry-level position as well. And obviously, the last couple bullets there, for those of us that don't know, we have a discounted TAP card. That's only for the service-connected veteran. The veteran, he or she has to be service-connected with the federal VA. Ideally, just to give you an example, for 30 days, a TAP card may cost about $100. But if you're a service-connected veteran, you fill out the application, you provide a copy of your service connection ID with that, you can probably get a significant 80% discount. And oh, by the way, you can ride the Metro for 30 days for about $20. So it's a significant savings to the veteran. And I try to educate the veteran community on this every time I conduct the outreach opportunities. We have recently, not official yet, I just got off a conference call with that last bullet there, a military skills translator for service members. This is where you have a drop-down menu. You click the menu, click the drop-down menu, click the branch that you've served in. Once you click the branch, it'll load up all the MOSs or training that you have received in that particular branch. You click that, and that will correlate to a job description at the employment opportunity at Metro. And so that's not official yet, but I think possibly by next week, Friday, I can go live with this. And so that bullet is on there. I had a very good, confident conference call this afternoon with my boss, and Monster and military.com is going to be helping us roll that out. So I'm very, very upbeat about that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dennis. As a veteran myself, and I've only been at Metro for about a year, or a little less than a year, I had to reach out to Veterans Assistance, so I contacted Mr. Tucker. I'm going to try to wrap this up very quickly so we can make sure that we have time for questions. Our next meeting, and as I mentioned earlier, Metro holds regular meetings, either monthly or quarterly. Our next meeting here in Westwood for Section 3 is going to be held on Thursday, September 13th, in a few weeks. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm running over my months. I want to rush this year by, but it's September 13th. At 6:30, we almost always hold it at Westwood United Methodist Church. And as Erik mentioned, and I think I mentioned earlier, we'll be back. We're looking at partnership opportunities with the VA, and they're holding events here on campus, whether or not it makes sense for us to join them and give an update. But independent of that, Metro will continue to do its stakeholder outreach and community outreach regardless. So one of the things I also wanted to mention is that back on the table, there's a lot of information on our construction progress on the Purple Line in general. There are refrigerator magnets with the contact information on it. And I think there's a few other information, there's information on Metro security. But the main thing is you can get any information that you want on the status of construction for the Purple Line 24/7. You can do it by phone. You can look at these links here that we have on our web. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. And I think the easiest and simplest place to go to get information if you have access to the internet is metro.net. You can look for all the projects there. If you look under projects, you'll see the Purple Line extension, and we put regular, almost weekly construction notices and updates, so you can always get information that way. That will conclude the presentation that we have. I thank you very much for your patience and for allowing Erik and myself to join you tonight.
Okay, so,
The lights turned on.
so far, do we have any other questions or feedback cards? Ma'am, you'll have to fill out a card and then we'll.
I'll bring you one.
Also, for any patients who have any individual issues, I do have patient advocate staff in the back who can assist you with any individualized issues, but we are sticking the conversation to the Metro Purple Line as it affects the campus. So, one of the questions was jobs for veterans. Alfred, I think we addressed your question.
Yeah, just want to know, are they gonna have to go to like an appraisal program for, this construction that's going on? Is that training, are they word out, do they gotta go to training school, become a carpenter, electrician, whatever? How does that work?
So the question was regarding apprentice programs or any job trainings that would be available. Sounds like for the construction piece.
So there's a couple options you can take. Obviously, you can probably just go directly to the website. My email address is on there. I will tell you if you find an employment opportunity that you see fit for yourself, I would suggest you email me first. Let you and I have a conversation, and then we can move forward from there. The most critical portion of that is creating your profile on the Metro website. That's very, very important because that is part of the application process. There are a couple other opportunities as well. We're coming out not with some employment opportunities via the work sources in WinLA. And so I can't necessarily speak on that because it's a soft rollout, but I know for a fact that it's going to be a critical part for veterans to get integrated into employment opportunities via WinLA and that program there. And so I'll certainly be involved with that, sir. Via WinLA and the work sources, and so you have several different opportunities and avenues to get employment via WinLA and Metro, and myself as well. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is regarding extending the Purple Line. Since the line ends at the VA, it's difficult for people who live and work in Brentwood. Are you extending the Purple Line?
The Purple Line is being built in a manner where it can be extended. Right now, what has been environmentally cleared is up to the VA. That's what's planned for, and that's what has been environmentally cleared. Nothing precludes the line from going further west, but it's not in our long-range transportation plan at the moment, and we haven't studied it in depth at the moment right now.
Second part of that question was, can you create a pedestrian bike vehicle path through the VA from the San Vicente Brigham Gate so that Wilshire can be bypassed? I think Ms. Brown or...
Okay, I'll give that a shot. So I would look to be partnering on that last mile, initiative and, look at what our transportation studies are showing for the master plans and work in partnership with Metro, to make that work out for everyone.
Okay, next one, how about keeping the tunnel boring machine access, and using it for a moving sidewalk to the station near Federal Avenue in West LA?
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yeah. David Hoffman?
Maybe you can answer your question.
So, you're gonna have a hole done from west of the station, it's gonna come out near Federal Avenue. About keeping that for a moving sidewalk to help pedestrians from near Federal Avenue, get to the station, make it straight to the station, otherwise don't fill up the hole.
The hole is basically, it's being constructed so that the tunnel boring machines will launch and head east from there. So there, I don't,
Plus,
federal,
when you're done with the hole.
I think that what has been, looked at so far is essentially filling it and, restoring the historic district, as much as possible in that area. We can certainly take a look at that, but I don't, it's not currently in the plan.
Okay, next one, regarding security. So bicycles are often stolen or vandalized in metro stations. What provisions, cameras, corrals, racks, lockers, etc. will there be to help secure them? How many bikes will those provisions protect? Any rain protection for the bicycles?
So there's a couple aspects of that. There's the aspects of whose jurisdiction it's going to be. There's an ongoing discussion between the different law enforcement groups to come up with an agreement for whose responsibility it is. There's also an ongoing discussion for mitigation for the additional resource that it will create just to monitor the site. So that is ongoing, but it's a good question to bring up is, what is exactly going to be put in place to, and I just want to make sure I get this correct, what is going to be put in place to monitor the site? And there are cameras that have been discussed. There is staffing that is being discussed. There's multiple mitigation avenues that we are currently in discussions with Metro to address similar things like that.
Okay, the next one, it seems like there's a question about how will people in wheelchairs get to the hospital from the Purple Line station?
Excellent question. First and foremost, all of our stations are built to be ADA accessible. So getting up and down from the train platform, there will be elevators available to ensure that folks can get to and from with relative ease. On that slide that showed the pickup drop-off area that we are exploring, there is provisions in there for direct access shuttles to move to and from the hospital for folks who, they are traveling to a hospital. So for folks who, that last bit of a trek may not be an easy one, VA shuttles will be able to pick them up from there and bring them to the hospital, or conversely, depending on how VA wants to structure that program, other parts of campus.
Okay, so I think this is the last question I have regarding with the cards. So if you have another question, please hand it to one of the staff. Will the presentation be made available? Yes.
Yes.
Via?
We will post it online on Metro's website, I think tomorrow afternoon,
Yes.
or tomorrow morning.
It looks like we got a few more. Okay, question, how many parking spaces in front of the hospital will be eliminated?
I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. 473? 473 parking spaces in the front of the hospital. We are anticipating and planning for a replacement parking structure and working with the VA on the absolute best location for that structure. We are going to be maintaining all of the handicap spaces that are immediately in front of the hospital. Those will not be affected during construction. We'll obviously have our construction sound wall up next to them, but those spaces will be maintained and they will be available after construction concludes.
Okay, and the next question, please describe first mile, last mile plans. And then, the second part of that question is, what is being done to mitigate traffic on Wilshire heading east during construction?
Well, first mile, last mile plans are very much in the works right now. We recently, we have a separate team that handles first mile, last mile, and they will be, they recently hired a consultant to do the studies necessary, and much of that will occur over the course of the next year. So the consultant as well as that team will be visiting campus and working with stakeholders on campus to come up with those creative ideas and solutions. That's the point where we're at right now. There's going to be more information as they come on campus, but the program is just starting to roll out right now. As far as the traffic on Wilshire during construction, I did note on some of the slides regarding the truck trips, that's where some of that extra traffic would be generated, and most of those truck trips are going to be taking place during the nighttime hours. There will certainly be times when we are looking at maybe some supplies having to be delivered during the daytime, but we are planning for nighttime hours as the majority of those will be the hauling away of materials coming out.
Okay, so there's a concern about traffic. What's the status of getting parking at Westwood, possibly at the federal building, to reduce cars driving to VA?
I've heard that idea floated around by a few folks. I don't know that we've engaged in any direct conversations about that. Westwood, similarly to the station, there is a robust first mile, last mile study that's going to be taking place to look at how to bring folks in means other than the private vehicle.
Okay, and then there's a second part. What about the funding to extend the line to Bundy, which would help access?
That's something that is a very popular idea. People are quite interested in it. There is not currently funding available for it, and it's not environmentally cleared or approved, and I don't think it's been studied. But nothing about the way that we are constructing the Purple Line will preclude that from happening. It's just a question of another project, it being another project and developing in the future.
Okay, will your pickup drop-off lot or first last mile plans include space for shared use devices like bird scooters? That's what you want to
The short answer is yes. We don't have all the details sorted out on exactly what these things will look like, but a major component of what we've been seeing and as we've been developing our other stations is things like bike share. And as bird scooters are proliferating and showing up more and more, that's something that right now is kind of Wild West, but as we think about what the station will look like in 7-8 years in the future, I think that the local municipalities will have a stronger grasp on how to deal with bird generally, and I think that we'll probably see some norms develop as far as where is an acceptable place to leave a scooter and how to operate a scooter, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the process some sort of docking station is a part of larger plans, especially as we look at some of the creative ways that we're going to be getting around to doing first mile, last mile.
Okay, this one is regarding budget and funding. What's more or less the cost for the project in tax or metro dollars?
The rough numbers, I don't remember if it was in the slide or not. The rough number is about $3 billion, if I'm not mistaken, for just this section 3.
The total cost of the project will be in excess of $8 billion.
That's for the entire Purple Line extension.
That's the budget.
We have, I will say, we've been doing a really good job on section 1. We are constructing that on time and on budget, and we're not looking at serious cost overruns right now. So we are feeling good about that, and you know, we're just continuing west.
Okay, so there's concern about daytime or afternoon construction on Ohio. Can this be done at night?
Well, actually, some of the work will be done all night, if I'm not mistaken. The work on Ohio, the work on Ohio, the work hours on Wilshire are from 9 p.m. till 6 in the morning. The work on Ohio and Federal will actually be from 9 a.m. to 3:30. Those are hours, again, when we set these hours and when our construction hours, keep in mind that we don't set them and then go out and do them. What we do is we work with our contractors to develop what we consider a feasible plan of action. Then we have to go to the Department of Transportation, Los Angeles City. We have to sit down with them, go over the plans, and then they have to either say yay or nay, depending on what work we're having to get done. So these plans, while they can change once we have kind of set these kind of the hours that the DOT, as well as even sometimes we involve local council districts. I believe here is Council District 11, Mike Bonnet's office, so we are in constant communications with his office as well as DOT before these hours are actually approved.
If I could just add to that, one of the priorities, because there are multiple priorities that are being weighed as hours are decided upon in the city right away. One of which is when we're looking at things like the saw cutting that will be required. Is, you know, we don't necessarily want to do that in the middle of the night. We have ways to mitigate that noise, but at the same time, we are fairly close to residences there. Another issue that's often weighed is how we are affecting traffic during the peak hour rush hour reviews. So that's where 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. comes from often, is that we've gotten past the morning rush and we're getting off the street before the afternoon rush to allow for as you know, least impactful as possible.
Okay, so the next question, will there be improved access to the other side of the VA campus? I'm assuming it's the north campus. The northern half isn't really accessed from the south, but it could be improved with a tunnel passage. Has this been considered?
It has been considered. It's been looked at in the past. What we have found is that while the tunnel access always seems like an exciting idea, in practice, planners are really nervous about creating smaller confined spaces where they don't need to be created. And when we look at the existing underpass on Bonsall, that is a prime location for that kind of walking path to be already when we consider, you know, where I think a lot of those activities are going to be going on North Campus, and how that is going to be a part of the campus thoroughfare. And so when we're looking at how we're improving that kind of access, that's where our first mile, last mile comes in, and that's where we get some really exciting opportunities for some synergy with some of the bigger planning going on for the master plan.
Okay, so the last part of that question is tourism of the historic campus being considered?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know if that's a consideration that VA is looking at, their master planning process.
I'm not sure that I understand the question, but we are certainly looking at ways to ensure that that veterans and other members of the public who are not resident on the campus have the opportunity to engage with the campus and in particular with the historic aspects of it. Did I even understand the question at all? Probably not.
Sam Seigel, UCL.
That's a good answer.
Okay,
Good answer.
And-
all right,
and
awesome.
I'll just add to that, that while we're not doing it for tourism aspects and the reasons, we do want to be respectful of the historic district, and that's why we're really trying to avoid any impacts to those buildings in particular, and then you know, whatever other contributing elements there are to that historic district, we're taking care to take a look at them as well.
So folks, I don't have any more cars. Doesn't sound like there's any more questions. If there aren't any, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Thanks everyone for coming. This isn't the last time you're gonna see us. Many more of these to come, and lots more outreach to inform you about the Purple Line and how it affects the campus. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.